Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. This is episode 155, and we're going to talk about a couple of things that I guess looking back, I probably should have talked about earlier. But honestly, I really didn't care so much. But since so many people are kind of outraged, and because I am a pastor, a Christian, so maybe what are my thoughts on, the latest controversy in the Olympics? All right, so there was a recreation of the Last Supper by drag queens, I guess, and trans queer people, whatever. Okay, so Christianity is always mocked. I'm kind of used to it, having been in the university setting since 1983. And even when I was in high school, people would, come at me, as they say, attacking my faith and stuff. But I was kind of used to it. I was prepared for it. My father, he studied in the university in the 60s, and that's when the God is Dead movement was really huge. And so, he would tell me stories and tell me how he dealt with a lot of the criticisms, I'll just put it that way, the criticisms of Christianity in his day and how he was able to overcome those hurdles, and so it wasn't really a big deal to me. People will say what they want to say. I mean, I had uh, more pressing issues, like being Asian when, racism was okay. So, so faith, you got it on your belief, the level of your belief, you got it. Personally, there was never any, end to the kind of harassment that someone could endure. And I don't think anything is really different today. So, in any case, being in the university, especially in grad school, where you would walk into a class and the professor would say the underlying assumption of the class, which is a class on the existence of God. It was a philosophical, a logic-based class, and he said, "Well, the assumption is that God doesn't exist," and that was the starting point. And I talked about starting points a couple of episodes ago. So, I'm kind of used to this phenomena of people disparaging Christian faith, but I mean, it doesn't really affect me personally. So really don't care. And especially if you walk around and people who use Jesus Christ as kind of an exclamation or kind of, an expression of anger or, disbelief, whatever, which means that it is taking the Lord's name in vain. So, I mean, come on, it happens all the time. But I guess people who watch the Olympics, and so now here we have a situation where, okay, so if you've never been in the university, so maybe you didn't encounter racism like I did. And so maybe you're tuning into the Olympics and you're expecting some kind of opening ceremony that highlights French culture or French history and take a break from all of the politics and war and atrocities and all this other absurdity, ridiculous worry that central banks all over the world are creating. So you kind of want to kick back and relax and kind of watch sporting events that a lot of other people all around the world are watching at the same time. So people who are expecting something cultural, something, that would teach you something about French society, French history, French culture, and then you get that. Okay. Uh, when you look at the opening ceremonies, particularly of the ones in Asia, I saw people posting clips of Chinese, the China Olympics when the Olympics was held in China, and the opening ceremonies were just really like wow, over the top, much bigger than they did in Korea. But it was all about highlighting and showcasing certain aspects of their culture. And you're kind of like, ooh, that's pretty cool. You want to show off your country, right? At least that's the way Asians would probably look at it. Maybe in the future, maybe not. Maybe they will be as woke as the French opening ceremony was. I think displays of French fries would have gone over better. And yes, I know that's an American thing. And that's my point, right? French fries would have been better than what a lot of people saw. I forget when I stopped watching the Olympics. I think I stopped watching in 1980, 84, when all of a sudden, because of the war in Afghanistan, the United States boycotted the Olympics that was held in Russia. And Russia didn't come to the Olympics when it was held in LA in 84. And all of a sudden, what I was taught as kind of a peace building, promoting peace kind of thing. Oh, I guess in the 80s it was still the Soviet Union, but whatever. It was supposed to promote goodwill, peace, and all this other good stuff. And there you have it, the United States turning into something political. And I remember a lot of athletes who were preparing to go, all of a sudden they knew that they would not be able to compete because the next time around, the Russians wouldn't come. And so really you're not competing against some of the best athletes in the world. And I think all of that kind of, turned me off to the whole thing. I do remember watching a little bit of the opening ceremony in 88 because it was in Korea. And I was just kind of curious, it's like, hey, and I was home too. So by 88, I was back at home going to grad school. And so, there weren't a whole lot of other entertainment options. And being living with my Korean parents, you couldn't just turn on the TV and watch it comfortably, because there was only one TV in the house, and certainly they weren't really interested in doing that, especially when I should have been studying. Why am I watching TV and having a good time, right? But just as a footnote, I just wanted to insert here Korea, because I went to Korea in 91. But the buildings were all heavily used, probably because the country is so small and there is very little free space, right? Just to give you an idea, if you're playing tennis, singles tennis, you got to share the court with another singles pair, right? You can't hog the whole court for yourself. That's just selfish and that's a waste of space. And so that's how bad it is, right? So, in terms of how space is a premium. So, if you're going to build a stadium, it's going to get used, okay? But anyway, it's not like Brazil where they built all of these stadiums and they're never used again. Just a complete waste of taxpayer money. So it's not just the event, but now the shows are politicized, right? So the Olympics themselves became political in 80 and 84, but now the shows themselves are politicized. I don't really keep tabs on it too much, but especially when they went Winter Olympics too, it was sort of like, okay, now we're just doing too much. It's sort of when you have too many spin-offs or whatever, I don't know. So the shows related to it are politicized, so where's the fun? And then you got all that medal count stuff going on, which is more about nationalism, which I thought was a bad thing according to what a lot of people are saying today. So it's just not fun. And then who pays for it all? I saw that a lot of there were videos of French citizens not really being cool with the ceremony either. And I'm guessing they probably lean more Catholic. And they say that the closer to Rome or the Vatican that you get, the more devout you are in your Catholic faith. And so France is relatively close. And so they probably weren't all that thrilled because they would recognize what is being depicted there, right? So why do they make it so political? It takes all the fun out of it. The point of having the Olympics, which is to promote fellowship, promote peace. But then again, you can kind of see today why they are so not enjoyable because no one cares about peace, right? Or very few people, at least in America, in the United States, care about peace. And so I guess you're going to have a lot of this sort of nationalistic outrage, religious outrage. And so people ruin their days because of it. For me, that's why I basically don't take much of anything seriously, because I don't like having my emotions being dictated to me by the rise and fall of some sports team. I used to follow professional sports, but then I realized that I would get in a really bad mood when the team that I liked lost. And I didn't like that. Why? Because I have no control over it, right? You can scream at the screen all you want, but you have no control over the outcome. You can't help them in some way, and you lack the talent or ability to even criticize. So I just stopped watching, uh, sporting events in general. And the only time I can really enjoy a sporting event is when I have no dog in the race or horse in the race. So I don't care who wins or who loses. I generally will side with the underdog, but I just get to enjoy the athleticism for what it is. All right, the next topic is weird. This apparently is the new mantra. I don't know how long it's going to last. What is actually weird is that people are okay with this mindless repetition by actors posing as journalists, right? It's not news, but rather they're telegraphing to all of their followers the instructions they are supposed to follow, right? So it's not just the news too, but Google search engine also is erasing things. Like if you try to Google Donald Trump's assassination attempt, it doesn't show up. If you, I saw something else where people are Googling how to donate to Donald Trump's election. And the question is, do you mean Kamala Harris is donating to Kamala Harris? Like it doesn't even come up. It's very interesting that way. So imagine if X was not bought by Elon Musk, where would we be? Where would I be even able to post anything? Like Rumble also is very much pro free speech. And so you begin to realize just how important the freedom of speech is, and not just for my own opinion, but for everybody. And at this point, allowing the opposition, right, the anti-freedom voices speak is awesome, because you get to see how ridiculous they are, right? So better ideas rise to the top, bad ideas always are destroyed. And it's only the sycophants and the really lowbrow people that are going to buy into this stuff. But it is shocking how many people go along with this. I mean, how smart do you have to be not to see the manipulation and the distortion of truth? It's almost like you have to be an Ivy League educated person to not see any of this. Yes, it's a crack against them, primarily because my former high school classmates who push back against me the most, they're Ivy League grads, which is always kind of amusing to me. But you try to tell Koreans how the dangers of going to an Ivy League school, and they all look at you like, there's something wrong with you, because clearly they are the best universities. And, how dare you suggest that my kids not go to the best? It's that kind of attitude. You may be able to understand that a little bit. And I have met a lot of wannabe Ivy Leaguers, especially among the PhD profession people, you know. So they try to model themselves after what the Ivy League schools are doing. And, I tried to tell my former advisor, who at the time was the assistant dean of the College of Liberal Arts, I was like, no, no, you don't want to go down this road. And of course, since, I don't have any Ivy League training in my history, clearly I knew nothing. But look at us now, right? So a lot of universities closing, firing, laying off professors, not like my situation, like they're being laid off because of, there's no money. I was laid off, of course, obviously fired because of my ideology. And I've said it before, maybe it was my religion. Maybe it was my politics, not too sure, but I'll never know because it's not part of the lawsuit that I've brought to the university. But anyway, and finally, let's talk about Venezuela. Or Venezuela, as some people, I don't understand why they. Anyway, Venezuela, Maduro, the socialist communist, was reelected, much like, same way that Brandon was elected. Right, there are some irregularities, more extreme. I'm looking at a graph right now, right, where the person who ultimately wins, there's a graph of the number of votes that they're getting, and all of a sudden it spikes up like near vertical spike. And then they end up with many more votes, right? So that same pattern existed with the US presidential election. So the opponents were Maria Machado, but apparently there was some kind of weird situation that she couldn't get on the ballot. So the candidate that ran for the opposition party was Edmundo Gonzalez. Uh, and okay, fine. So Maduro cheated probably, uh, to get reelected. The what do you call it? Exit polls had him losing by a huge margin, and all of a sudden he wins by a comfortable margin. But here's the problem. The opponents, Machado and Gonzalez, they're favored by the United States. And that's what makes them really sus, right? It's a little suspicious, right? If you have the Biden administration really promoting and taking the side of Machado and Gonzalez, it makes you wonder like, oh, so they're the CIA candidates, right? So Venezuela itself probably wouldn't be all that better off if they were in charge. But this pattern of cheating, this pattern of election irregularities, importing all these new voters here into the United States, allowing them and saying that they have a right to vote, even though, they have no citizenship, no legal residency status. They've only been here a couple of weeks, but yeah, they have voting rights. It's weird, right? See, this is democracy. This is democracy in action. I keep saying that on X and on Facebook. And I wonder how many people actually know what I'm saying. So, democracy, you have to know, is a concept that is, a lot of it's not unusual that the left keeps using that word democracy because it's in the Communist Manifesto, right? So, and I said this not too long ago, but if you look towards the end of chapter 2 of the Communist Manifesto, I can't give you a page number because every version of it will have a different page. But towards the end of chapter 2, before he lists the 10 things that the communists need to do once they come to power, he talks about how, communism is a true democracy. But look at communist regimes, you know, recently and in other places of the world. There is no opposition party, right? So democracy, and I always say that democracy, that kind of democracy, there is no opposition. There's only one party. And if you try to begin some sort of opposition, well, you get arrested or somehow you get a call from Hillary Clinton, right, asking you how you want to commit suicide. And that's how they roll, right? That's how people who clamor and cry for democracy, that's what they want. Okay. And so clearly them targeting Trump and all the Trump supporters, it's that effort to eradicate the opposition so they can have their kind of democracy where they get to call all the shots. So obviously Maduro said, hey, no, I won fair and square. I'll even get the Supreme Court to do an audit. But of course, the Supreme Court takes the side, right? Because if you've been in power for so long, you're going to fill all the major branches of government, all the positions of power with your people. And if they step out of line, well, I can just get rid of them, right? In the most convenient way possible. They'll have many accidents. And also in the United States, too, it's like when the FBI investigates the FBI, yeah, they never find any problems. Okay. That's how democracy works. Okay, that's how uh, people who love democracy and benefit from that system. That's why they love it so much. Looking ahead to the American election, Gerald Celente of uh, Trends in the News, right? Uh, he has that Trends Journal, right? Says that Harris will win primarily because of the abortion issue, right? And it's a lot bigger than a lot of people think. And, he's pretty spot on for a lot of things. And so I'm going to prepare myself for a Harris win, right? And especially if you can create votes like you can create dollars, that, yeah, it's pretty much in the bag, right? I don't know why anyone would think that Trump has a chance in that kind of situation. So it seems like our only hope is a sovereign debt crisis when the dollar crashes and everyone rejects the dollar. So then government can't feed itself. It's probably why they're pushing CBDCs so much, right? Because then they think they can avoid the sovereign debt crisis that way. But anyway, I'm mentally preparing myself for President Harris. Uh, anyway, that's it for today. Just a couple of takes, subjectively speaking, on a couple of these issues, and I will talk to you next time.